Well, welcome everyone. My name is Will Marsh. I'm AzureWell's head of practitioner partnerships, and I have our special esteemed guest, Dr. Alphonzo Monzo, joining us today as we dive into really the immune system, but really from a different angle around the myths of immune health. And so we're really exploring a larger question rather than how do we fight germs. What determines whether an exposure becomes an illness? How strongly does it actually affect us? And how can we effectively support the body in returning towards its natural state of balance? In today's discussion, Dr. Monzo and I will really try to bring and bridge together the tenets of naturopathic vitalism, terrain theory, really helping us better understand what are pathogens, how we can modify lifestyle, nutrition, and other factors in our environment to really support immune resilience. And so we're really trying to approach this from a place of curiosity and really trying to dispel the myths that really make up the immune system. So please know that this conversation is meant to be educational and is not meant to replace any type of individualized medical evaluation or treatment. But that being said, I want to welcome Dr. Alphonzo Monzo to the stage to help us lead off this conversation around what are some of those big immune myths that I think are so prevalent in our society. So, Dr. Monzo, welcome.
Thank you, Will. Great to be back again. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, of course. It's amazing to have you here.
Yes. Okay, well, I guess we'll jump right in.
Yeah, let's do it.
And get to, here we go. Immune to myths. How your body really defends you. Okay. I like the little meme I put up in the middle there. It's not who's right, but what's right.
Mm.
And I guess I've always kind of been one of those people that never really cared for the whole concept of debating because I never saw the validity of it. I'm like, well, all you're really doing is seeing who had the better sounding argument, but it doesn't necessarily mean they were right or true, right? It's just if you can make it sound better, then you win. And it's like, well, that's not necessarily. But we have all this stuff going on here. Shots and viruses and bugs and boosting the immune system. So what is truth? So this is kind of the outline here. We're going to look at different myths. We're going to talk about how the body really defends you. How does the body really work? Lifestyles to health or disease. And then what kind of nutrition can we do to improve the vital force? And we're going to talk about that. What is that? And supplements to support the vital force. So maybe we'll start with that first before I even get to the myths here. So with these AzureWell podcasts, we have covered, I think, immune system maybe once or twice. And each time we go different directions. I think the first one was just a good overview for the basic average person of what the immune system is. I think on our second podcast on the immune system, we covered more of the lymphatic system and how important the lymphatic system works in tangent with the immune system. And now we're getting more into a little bit deeper, still not like you don't have to worry, you don't have to have a PhD to understand this, or this is still for the average person who wants to understand, but we're going to get more into naturopathic vitalism and really understanding the core philosophies behind really the immune system is this one, or the core philosophies on how the body works. Because when you understand these core principles, we call them truths. They are found in nature. They are self-evident in nature when you learn them. It really dispels a lot of the myths and the lies and the fear. So we don't actually have to be worried and fearful about, what are we going to do about our immune system this year, right? We're getting closer and closer to the fall season. And usually in the fall, winter is usually when people have more immune issues. Now, is that because of the germs or is that because of other factors? That's what we're going to talk about. So that's why we want to teach everyone more about vitalism and what naturopathic vitalists believe. Because once you understand that, it can really dispel a lot of the myths and the fear and probably save you a lot of money too, not running around buying every little thing that you see advertised in this coming season. Okay, so myths. Germs are the cause of disease. So that's one of the myths. Are germs always the cause of disease? Well, maybe not. Viruses, germs, and contagion don't exist. So there's two extremes, right? One side says it's all about the germs, and the other side says they don't even exist and you can't even catch them. Well, are those both right, or are they both wrong, or kind of right? We're going to talk about that. So then you get into the concept of there are no pathogens. All right. If you don't believe in contagion, you don't believe in viruses and germs, then pathogens don't exist. I think everyone kind of knows, well, that's not true. We know we have been able to see certain things. We've seen bacterias, we can see fungus, we can see certain parasites, particularly if they get larger, like roundworms and tapeworms and bigger ones. So we know those things do exist, but are they the cause of the disease? We also hear things like toxins and mental emotional stress can't make you sick. Well, I'm here to tell you that's absolutely not true. That's absolutely not true. Um, but that is what we have been told by some perspectives. We also are told that food and diet has nothing to do with wellness and nothing to do with your immune system. And interesting, I was just in a hospital not long ago with a family member, and uh, I was really surprised by what they were bringing in for them to eat because their problem they were in there. I'm not going to give away too many details, but they were in there mainly because of a lot of congestion, and they're bringing them milk and mashed potatoes and meat with gravy, and I'm going, oh, these are all the foods that are going to make you even more mucus production and not help get anything out, make you more sticky and gummed up. And it's like, they don't even like chocolate pudding with sugar. And I'm like, oh, I'm just sitting there going, this is exactly why no one really gets well in the hospital. And, but if you ask them about it, it's like, well, food and diet has nothing to do with this disease. So why not let a person down some chocolate pudding and a whole carton of who knows what kind of milk that doesn't even need to be refrigerated. I don't know what that is, but it's questionable whether or not it's even milk. So you can see my perspective. So when we have these concepts that just don't make any sense, it's like, well, that doesn't make any sense. In nature, it's very clear that even animals, they're very picky on what they eat and what they don't eat. They know what to eat and what not to eat. In fact, they know what to do and what plants to look for when they're not feeling well. So clearly, diet has something to do with it. And then we're told, oh, go ahead.
Oh,
Do you have something to say?
sorry to interrupt. Do you think we encourage enough of like when somebody is ill to actually ask the question of what they need to eat in that scenario? Like, do you think we've lost awareness in
I
that
think we
regards of
do. I mean, I remember when I was growing up, it was very common for when we were not feeling good. It was like, oh, we're gonna get chicken noodle soup or some type of soup, right? And eat almost more of a broth. So, uh, putting less stress on the body. And a lot of people might remember that when you used to get sick, if you're the older generation, your parents would have you fast and you didn't eat anything. And so that's an interesting concept. I don't think that even is considered in these days.
yeah,
And
I mean,
I think a lot of times when people are sick these days, they don't even consider anything to do with what they're eating, quite honestly. So the idea of should we give the body a little bit of a rest so the innate wisdom and the vitality of the body can actually do what it needs to do. I just realized I said a few things and then never actually described vitalism. So if you are listening and you don't know, vitalism is the belief that we have a vital force that sustains the body. So if you believe in the Bible and Scripture, you might believe that that is the breath of life that God breathed into man and he became a living being, right? So we believe that there is this vital force that sustains us. And because we have this vital force and that we were created, we have this innate wisdom that the Creator gave us. And that wisdom of the body that is being sustained by the Creator knows how to heal, it wants to heal, and it's trying to heal. And all we have to do is get out of the way a lot of the times and live according to the laws of nature that the Creator created. and lo and behold, give the body what it needs from nature, and all of a sudden the body kicks in, and the innate wisdom and the vital force does what it needs to do to correct the issue. So that's what we need, what we mean when we say we're naturopathic vitalists. So we believe that. We believe the body is able to heal. And that's a different perspective than what you get from the allopathic world, because for the most part, they don't really believe that. They only believe it to a certain spectrum, right? If you cut your finger, they believe that can heal. But when it actually gets to most chronic diseases and disease states, they will say, well, no, you can't grow new brain cells, you can't grow a new this, your liver can't repair. Well, your skin can repair, but nothing else can, right? So that's why there's a whole lot of suppression instead of encouraging the body to do what it does. And that leads us to the next one. So when you don't have the vitalistic worldview, what do? Well, you come out with vaccines and drugs and antibiotics. And of course, they're always safe and effective, don't we know? And just recently, there's a lot of question in the news about, are these things really safe? Are they really effective? Have they really been tested like we've been told they are tested? Now, that's one argument. Our argument would be a completely different thing. We don't even need to go down that road. Our argument is, do we even need them if you truly understand how the body works? Are they even the right tool for the job? So whether or not you think they work, the question really then comes down to, do we actually really need them? Mm-hmm. And so that's what we're going to kind of get into here with the presentation. So the next one.
And maybe a clarifying question, because we're talking about the naturopathic vitalism here a little bit more, and modern physiology uses terms such as like homeostatic state and the allostatic load, right, to describe different processes of maintenance and adaptation. Does vital force, that concept, bridge those tenets? Like, is there something that's like, in your opinion, left out of that discussion when we're looking at that kind of homeostatic throttling of the body, when you're really taking a vitalistic view of the body?
I'm not sure. I think it would be depends on who's talking about it, because the vital force does include that language you're speaking of. Mm-hmm. It's just, if you were on the other side, I don't think you would hear anything about the vital force. You're just going to hear this kind of more mechanicalistic perspective of how the body brings balance to itself. And it's like, well, what's driving that? Well, it's just chance and random and, good luck and bad genes. But no, the vital force, that's exactly what it's doing. It's always trying to find balance, right? Just like everything in nature is always seeking to find balance. And balance is where you're going to be healing. So, yeah, I guess I was actually ahead of myself. Here is the slide. I always do that in PowerPoints. I can never remember, like, do I have that in the slide? And there you go. There's the vital force. And so sometimes you'll hear people call this the vis. And so that comes from this Latin phrase, which basically means the healing power of nature. Okay. So it describes this inherent physiological ability of living organisms to self-regulate, maintain balance, there you go, homeostasis, and recover from illness or injury. Often described as the body's innate wisdom. So, and I already said this, the body wants to heal, the body knows how to heal. We just have to give it what it needs. And oftentimes in naturopathic vitalism, that means we're looking to deal with the root cause and treat the person, not disease, right? So we really don't care about the diseases and their names, because they really don't tell you a whole lot, right? If, like myself, when I was diagnosed years ago, 26 some years ago, with colitis, ulcerative colitis, it was like, oh, that's a fancy name. All right, now I know what I got. Why? And they don't have an answer to why. Mm-hmm. So even though they can gather all your symptoms and diagnose you and give you a name, the name doesn't really do any good for you, because it doesn't tell you anything about why you have the disease. So it's like, well, what was the use of the name? Well, if you prescribe drugs, the name is very well informed for you, because once you have identified the name, there are drugs associated to that name or that disease. But that doesn't look at the root cause. So the philosophy of holism really guides the treatment. So that is the philosophy of vitalism is holism. So we're looking at the whole body, the spirit, the soul, the body. We have to consider all things. And when we're talking about the soul, we're looking at, your mind, your will, your emotions. So are your thoughts correct? Are your emotions correct? Meaning, do you have, constant negative thoughts and what we call stinking thinking? Because you can make yourself sick if you have all kinds of negative thoughts and you're really hard on yourself and you're calling yourself stupid and dumb and, oh, this is just killing me. Your words have power and your mind has power. And even scripture tells us this. As a man thinketh, so he is. So that's not a new age concept. That is just a true concept. So if we have these negative thoughts and negative emotions and all that, well, that plays right into disease states. And the reason I bring that up is that that doesn't get looked at from the other perspective at all. They almost never think about what's going on with you spiritually, mentally, emotionally. Could that even be part of why you're sick? And usually the answer is no. So right there, we just found another reason why you could possibly get sick that has nothing to do with germs, right? So think about that in these seasons. When you're heading into the fall, you're heading into winter, what usually happens in this time of season? Holidays. And holidays are an interesting thing because you have to deal with family. And we would all love to say that we all have the most amazing families that never give us any problems, but that's usually not true for most people. So what comes around this time period? Not only are you dealing with families, but we have all these holidays that we have created extra work for ourselves. We have to go around, we have parties, we have events, we have gifts we have to buy, we have all this maybe decorating, we have all this stuff we have to do on top of what we were already doing. So what we do normally in these seasons is we create this season of stress. And so people say, oh, it's flu season. Is it flu season or is it stress season? Right? And then what kind of foods do we eat around the holidays? Well, that's when the diet goes out the door. And all your plans for the year go out the door and you go, I'm going to start next year. Right? So when we start looking at what is the lifestyle like during this so-called flu season, we might start thinking of things different. Maybe it's not so much the bugs, but what we're doing and how we're living. Well, now we're going to go to the next one, which is exactly what we're starting to get into, terrain theory. So what is terrain theory? What is it not? So terrain theory is really just trying to answer the question, what is the ultimate cause? I think it's been taken out of context. I think a lot of people today think terrain theory means that bugs and pathogens have nothing to do with you ever getting sick. And it only has to do with how the terrain is referring to the internal environment of the body, how the internal environment of the body is as far as toxicity. And if you're not toxic, then you don't get sick and you don't get the bugs. But that's not really the original concept of the terrain. The original concept of the terrain theory is more about the vitality of your terrain, which isn't limited to just one thing, right? It's not limited to just toxins. The vitality of your terrain, the whole person, can be related to your diet and the toxins and the stress and the stinking thinking and the trauma and the environment, the lack of rest and movement, old injuries, scar tissue, problems with your teeth, problem with the digestive tract. All of this creates really the terrain, which we really could call your body's vitality. And when that vitality is weakened, and thus the terrain of the body is weakened, now you're more susceptible for these organisms that do exist, like the parasites and the bacteria and the funguses. We might even say viruses, or what is a virus? We're going to get to that. You set up the stage where those things can move in because they're opportunistic, and they do serve somewhat of a purpose. We do have this symbiotic relationship with nature. We came from nature. We came from the dust of the earth. So that means a lot of times these bugs are in the body actually that help us to come in and eat up the toxins and prevent them from getting deeper into the tissues and the cells, which is the ultimate thing that we don't want, is toxins to get deeper and deeper into tissues and then into the cells, because when they get into inside the cell, that's when you're going to have really, really bad situations. And this whole process is explained in homeotoxicology, which is a whole nother topic. We might have talked about that in some other podcasts, but it's just a view of how, when toxins get deeper and deeper into the body, it sets up more and more, I would say, what is the word I'm looking for? Serious disease, you could say. And if our body is able to keep them on the outside, more out, not able to get into the tissues, not able to get into the cells, but on the outside, the extracellular space, and then eventually eliminate them out of the body, then you know you're doing very well, because you don't have those toxins messing up the function of the cell and the function of the tissues. So there is a perspective on where the pathogens actually kind of do help protect you. But then there's another side to that, which, let's go right to pathogens. For pathogens, you have to define the terms. And this is a big thing now because we're post-COVID. During COVID is when a lot of this debate really came to the forefront of, is it terrain theory or is it germ theory? Is it the terrain? Do viruses exist? Do viruses not exist? Are viruses exosomes? Is there even a such thing as contagion? Everyone was confused and everyone was arguing. And I find the simplest thing to do is to go back and define the terms. What does pathogen mean? We think often today that pathogen means an infectious organism, right? But that's not actually what it means. It comes from two words. I believe these are Greek, pathos and gen. Well, pathos means pathology or disease, and gen goes back to genesis or cause, like in the beginning, the ultimate cause. So really, it's what is the cause of disease is pathogen. Well, that means anything can be a pathogen. It can be a toxin, it could be bad food, it could be bad thoughts, it could be stuck emotions. Any of those things that could ultimately cause to the disease of the tissues and organs and cells could be a pathogen. And usually the concept of a pathogen often also is something that comes from the outside into the body. But it doesn't have to be. It could be an internal process. Now, if we go to a virus, same thing. We have been taught that viruses are these little organisms. But the funny thing is, virus is a Latin word that means poison, toxin, or venom. So if we understand a virus as a poison or a toxin, can we say they don't exist? I mean, we've seen toxins. We know what toxins are. We know what glyphosate is. We know what a lot of these poisons are. We've seen them. So you can't say, well, no one's ever seen a virus. Well, if you're talking about a virus as a pathogen, as in an organism, well, you're right. Maybe we've never actually seen an actual virus completely isolated by itself without any cell debris. But what happens if the virus is just a poison or a toxin? Well, now it's a different question, isn't it? And then that actually gets even deeper as to, can we all get viruses then if they're toxins? Well, actually we can. So when we define the words correctly, we misplace a lot of the fear tactics. And I know a lot of what's happened since COVID, since 2020, this whole debate kind of came up to try to take the fear away from people. Like, you don't have to be fearful of these things because they don't exist and they've never been proven, and don't worry about them. Well, being ignorant doesn't help you either. Just denying that anything exists and kind of sticking your head in the sand doesn't help. So we have to be very careful that we're defining these things correctly, because as properly defined, a virus is a toxin or poison. So yeah, we don't have to be afraid of an organism coming after us, but at the same time, we don't want to be ignorant of the fact that we have a very toxic environment, and the knowledge is the power, right? It's not we have to be afraid of these things. It's we need to have the knowledge to know what to do about it, because we don't need to be afraid of it because there's solutions. So that brings in a whole new mind shift for most people. So we don't have to be afraid of these little organisms floating around. There's a lot of toxins all around, and we're going to be exposed to them. But guess what? Our body knows how to detox. It wants to detox. And if we just know what to do from a natural perspective, the innate wisdom of the body will get these toxins out. So do infectious organisms really exist? Well, yes, they do. Do infectious organisms create toxins? Well, yes, they do. So this is where we were going a second ago. The idea of, I'm going to say pathogens as in organisms, acting as scavengers and opportunistic. So you have this whole picture. Yeah, scavengers, maybe they're coming in the body to help protect you and clean up your body's terrain, but they're also opportunistic. They move in because there's stuff they feed off of. And when they're in your body, guess what? Parasites and fungus and mold and virus, however you want to define it, they actually do cause further problems in your body because they're creating their own waste product. And a lot of times, their waste product is actually more dangerous than themselves to the body. So they're actually adding to the problem with the terrain. So that's why I was saying when it comes to terrain theory, it's not so much a viewpoint of is it black and white? Is it the toxins only or is it the bugs? But it's the whole picture. And it's really what is the root cause? Well, the root cause is the terrain of the body's not clean, or the terrain of the body doesn't have the right vitality. And then the infection, the organisms move in. And then the organisms also start becoming a part of the picture of the disease process because they cause further damage to the tissues and the organs. They cause further toxic load to the body. So they actually start becoming part of the picture. So it's not like one or the other. It's like one before the other, right? So the ultimate cause was the vitality of the terrain, but then that stuff moves in and now you have to deal with both. And so this is a more balanced perspective. Next topic. Well, I should check with Will first. Is there anything you want to add to all of that?
I think I'm really appreciating the the description of the vital force in the immune discussion, because it really having that layer to that discussion overall gives a very concrete, almost momentous kind of perspective of how things are, if things are being welcomed into the body or kind of repelled out, right? And if you think of the body's adaptive reserve or vital reserve, there is this like imminence or this imminent force that kind of creates a barrier, right? Because you have this presence, right? And how you're moving through the world. And in a lot of ways, those germs or those viruses, they feel that presence and that's the sum total of a lot of different processes going on, but there's no space to welcome them in. And I think that's just such a beautiful way of really helping people maybe understand from a different lens of how you're preventing, things from coming into your vessel in that sense. So great job. I just love it.
Yeah, something to really think about, right? Because we've all experienced, if you're in a room with a bunch of people and some people are coughing and they're really sick and they have a runny nose and everything, does everyone get sick? No. Do some people seem to pick it up? Well, yes. Now, is that proof for or proof against contagion? Well, it's hard to say. And that's the problem with a lot of these studies, is people will say there's never been a study that shows contagion. Well, that's actually not true. But the problem is we have to actually look at the studies. Mm-hmm. Most of the studies, as Will already knows, are not really following the scientific method. And when you get into this field of medical studies, there's something to be learned, and that is you can't just read the summary and the what is the thing I'm thinking of?
Yeah, abstract maybe,
The
or
abstract. Because
the
oftentimes you read the summary in the abstract and it tells you a completely different story than if you actually read the actual study. And sometimes you read the study and you go, well, that's not how you can study this. It's not even reliable. So with a lot of those con- contagion studies that people say didn't prove contagion, well, you have to look at how toxic were the people, how clean were they? Were they all eating the same thing? Did they all believe the same thing? Like, how do you take in all the perspective of what a naturopathic vitalist looks at in a
yeah,
person's life and put that into a study? You almost can't do it because
we all
we don't
we need
even know how to measure the spirit or so, or thoughts or emotions.
yeah.
So how do you even put that into a study? You really can't. So most of all the studies and double-blind studies are all flawed because they really can't isolate everything. It's impossible,
It's
right?
almost like we need a classification system for participants that is uniform across all studies to really understand how healthy are these people, right? Because I mean, at the end of the day, that's going to determine all the different outcomes of that study. So, yeah, it's true.
Right. And not, one more thing to add to that is the concept of, um, let's say you were studying a virus. I don't know, pick one. Do you even know and have proof that that virus works based on contagion, as in if someone sneezes, it goes into the air and it floats through the air and then you breathe it in and you get it? Well, if you don't even know if that's the mechanism, then how can you use that as the mechanism for the study to prove that the mechanism doesn't work? Right?
Hmm.
Because you don't even know if that specific organism works that way. So you can see how the study's kind of already flawed. It's like, well, if you have this organism, you sneeze and someone else is going to get it. Well, you don't even know if that's how it works. So then when someone sneezes and all the other people in the study don't get sick, it's like you didn't prove anything because you didn't know that was the actual what you should have been studying. You didn't know if that was the mechanism. Maybe the mechanism has to do with vibration or frequency. Oh, we don't want to go. We don't want to talk about that. That could be a completely different mechanism where then you don't actually even need the physical presence of the organism entering your body, but just the information that sets up a process in your body. And
Mm,
the other question in these situations that people should think about here, and this is important for our discussion, is your symptoms. When you get the symptoms of a cold, is that a bad thing or a good thing? You know, we've heard a phrase for a long time that there is no cure for the common cold. Well, the symptoms of the cold is the cure. That is what your body is doing to try to expel out of the body what is not supposed to be there. So that should be the first question. When you start picking up something or you're going into that sick response, is that actually a good thing? Could that not just be your body is trying to eliminate something from the body that is not supposed to be there? And thus, so the homeostasis can return back to balance and the vitalism can be restored. And that's important to understand because if we don't understand how the body heals, we're often quick to jump to suppression. Oh no, I have mucus coming out. I need to suppress that and take the, whatever to suppress the mucus. Well, maybe take something to help get the mucus out. I have a cough. I want to suppress the cough. Well, maybe you should encourage the cough to get stuff out. Oh no, I'm having diarrhea. We have to stop the diarrhea. Well, maybe you need to do something to help eliminate and get the bowel working correctly so you don't need diarrhea. The diarrhea was the overexpression of the body to try to get something out. And it's like
mhm.
if you just encourage the process of effectively getting stuff out, it goes away a lot faster, right? So we don't want to think of the symptoms the wrong way.
Beautiful.
So now we're getting into diet, nutrition, and lifestyle. So these are areas of life that if we don't live according to natural law, the vitality or our vitality, the vital force, decreases, right? So we have thousands of years of holistic medicine, and the truth is still dysfunction begins in the gut. all these different modalities, and almost all of them will say you start with the gut. The gut begins everything. If you're not digesting your food, um, you're going to have problems. So we should want to return to a whole food biblical diet. So uh, don't take the hospital advice. Get rid of stuff that in the boxes and the cans, and try to get back to what actually grows out of the ground. And that's where Azure Standard is all about, is bringing you actual real food from the garden, from the farm, not from a box. And that's the first thing to do. The second thing to do, once you start getting that down, that takes some time to learn. You know, you're not just going to do it overnight, but slowly you learn how to remove all the stuff that's not real food out of your diet and replace it with real food that grows from the ground, that's organically grown, that doesn't have pesticides or herbicides and all this other nasty stuff sprayed on it every day. The next step then is we should want to remove food that causes stress to the body. And that's different for everybody. Usually everybody has some weaknesses. Now I'm talking more like food intolerances. Most people have some type of food allergy or sensitivities, and sensitivities are completely different. Allergies are completely different. I would classify those as a sensitivity is usually more of an energetic thing. It can give you all kinds of different symptoms. They're usually not the root cause, and the reason why, you can think of a sensitivity as an overreaction. And the overreaction is occurring because there's other root causes that have to be removed first, so your body's not overreacting. Allergies are more of a immune response. So we could say it's a chemical immune response to where you have some type of allergic reaction. And then you have intolerances. Intolerances are seen more as there's a metabolic blood digestive disorder where your body is not able to break down certain foods. And because the food cannot be broken down correctly, it causes toxinemia to the body, which is a fancy word for toxicity. And so if you're constantly eating a food that you can't digest, you're constantly causing more toxicity and stress and inflammation to the tissue. Now, this is where you could find a practitioner that knows how to get you tested to find out what your food intolerances are, or you do an elimination diet, which can be tricky. It can be a little bit challenging, but you can do it. And that is, you eliminate as much stuff as you can and you eat one thing at a time. You start putting one food back in at a time until you have a reaction. And now you should kind of, have a couple days, or, if you don't know what it is, it's kind of hard. And it's tricky. Sometimes you can take a guess. Well, maybe it's dairy. Okay, well, go without dairy for a month. That's a really good way to find out. And after a month, note how you're feeling, what symptoms you have or what symptoms went away, and then consume a bunch of milk and see what happens. And if you get symptoms right away, you know what you just ate probably is not being processed by your body correctly and is causing more stress to the body. And everyone's different. So everyone has their own unique weaknesses. The blood type diets aren't bad. I find them, I don't think it's a perfect type of, I don't think the blood type concept is not a concept of what is healthy food. It's just a perspective of how do certain foods react to your blood chemistry. And I don't think they're written in stone, but the generalities of the blood type diets seem to be pretty accurate. Okay, so you could always look at that, and maybe that gives you an idea of what foods to start eliminating first and trying it that way. And so everyone's different, and you have to find out what your body likes and what your body doesn't like. And the foods that it does like, it doesn't matter how organic and how great it's grown. If your body can't break down that food, you need to remove it from your diet, or you're going to have constant irritation. And that itself could be what's making a person sick or unwell. Especially, if you have a gluten intolerance or wheat or probably dairy or sugar during the holiday seasons, during the flu seasons, that's usually what most people are consuming. And guess what? If you're consuming that on a regular basis, you're causing all this toxinemia to the body. and the vitality of the body is going to drop. After that, we need to look at, are we consuming the 90 essential nutrients? Well, most likely, even if you're eating the best food out there, you're probably not getting them all because the soils are just so depleted now. Unless you have regenerative farming where they're actually putting the nutrients back into the soil, right? So that's like the next step above organic farming, because I'm trying to think the way that, how does he say that? Organic farming tells you what is not going into your body that's not supposed to be there. But, regenerative farming is more of like, what are we putting back in that's supposed to be there, right? So that's a good way to look at it. And that's where the 90 essential nutrients come in. And of course, if we're going to do the 90 essential nutrients, that's where AzureWell comes in, because you don't want to just go out and buy any product on the shelf. The idea is nutrients are supposed to come from your food. So why don't we have supplements that's just food in a bottle? Well, that's what AzureWell is doing. That's what we call it, whole food supplements. It's basically food in a bottle. That's the best way to do it. We don't want to just isolate and make a bunch of synthetic stuff in a lab and throw it in there and say, well, it's vitamin C, kind of. No, we want the whole molecular structure of the whole food C complex, which you get from food. So that's why we have AzureWell, and you can get the 90 essential nutrients from actual food-based supplements. So that would be the next thing to consider. Do you need to supplement a little bit of that along with a healthy diet once you've moved into that process? And I like this phrase, we should want a lifestyle instead of a death style, right? And I think I said this in the other podcast a couple of weeks ago, that nature always wins. You can say God always wins too, but it's just true. The laws of nature win. You can think you're Superman and climb up the Empire State Building and jump off thinking you're going to fly. And you can meditate all you want, but most likely you're probably going to fall to your death and gravity is going to win. Unless you have a stronger force than gravity that allows you to glide or parachute or something like that. But nature wins, and that's what we see in health in this country, is nature's winning. And what we're doing is just returning us back to the dust of the earth a lot quicker. And we don't want to do that. So then you want to do what gives your body vitality. That just makes sense. So the next topic. Now we're going to get into more of lifestyle, unless Will has something he wants to share first about what we just talked
I
about.
think that the only thing that death style versus lifestyle, it hits on me, the aspect of how are you overcoming the forces of nature to have that vitality, right? And that's innate to you, but when we're alive, in a lot of ways, I always think how we're this a system that it's always exchanging information with the environment, but we have to kind of have that tidal, we have to have our own tidal effort around us to really kind of prevent nature from collapsing back in on us, if that makes any sense.
Yes.
That's what really resonated with me in that. So
That and what we're doing to nature, right?
mm-hmm.
So, the opposite of naturopathic vitalism would be more of the mechanistic thought of allopathic medicine, where the view is the body is like a machine.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, machines aren't alive. So what kind of lifestyle are you going to produce if you're treating things as a machine?
Well, no process, nothing that you do in life is mechanistic. It's always, there's multiple systems around that one. So like if you have let's say your Achilles tendon, rips or something, like, and you're trying to rehab that. Well, there's a whole mindset of overcoming the fear to get back into being able to run, as an example, around that, and rehabbing that. There's all these different parts and layers, and you can't isolate the whole. By no means can you do that. So.
No. And that's another example, bringing in the mental and emotional, right?
Mm-hmm.
There might not be anything wrong with the Achilles tendon anymore, but if you're stuck in that fear state, well, you're preventing yourself from doing something that you want to do for no reason whatsoever
And
other than your own fear.
and it's kind of that metacognitive space of like you don't even know you have the fear because you're just not moving in a specific direction because you're never encouraged to do so. Like you're not encouraged, so your body's forming a habit. And I think that in a lot of ways that parallel is what speaks to every system of the body, right? Because you don't know how to, I guess, create a greater resilience in that space. And this is why I love working with naturopathic physicians, because there is that awareness, right, of like, hey, how can we support the adaptive reserve in this specific area of the body? So
Yeah,
yeah, that's cool.
absolutely. Okay, so how does your body really defend? Well, it just does. It wants to heal. It knows how to heal. What are some things we need to do? Well, we have to keep a healthy lifestyle, and that means exercise. Okay. Uh, Now, this doesn't have to be dogmatic. You find what works for you. Aerobic exercises, jogging, cycling, swimming. The idea here is to improve circulation and ultimately movement for the lymphatic system. We want to get things moving. Not only that, but I think maybe a little bit later I mentioned sunlight, but the idea of being outside is always a great idea. You know, if you could be doing a lot of this stuff outside, I think that's one of the downsides to the gym. Well, there's a lot of downsides to the gym, but they're not the best environments. They're definitely not outside. And a lot of times people go there just to work out, and we don't really want to work ourselves out. We just want exercise. But how much better would you feel if you're jogging on the beach or in the woods? And, you know, the nice thing with the beach is you can go barefoot and you can be grounding and working out or, you know, go swimming, doing stuff more in nature is just going to really help the body because that's how we were designed to be. We're designed to be in nature, not in buildings all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Even if the environment is toxic, we have to get rid of that fear too, right? That's a fear people have. I don't want to go outside and exercise because it's so toxic out there. It's like, well, you're really doing yourself a disservice. You kind of just have to put that aside and say, no, by exercise, we're going to get the emunctories moving. That is the drainage elimination systems of the body moving and pumping. And that's going to help you get the toxins out. And that brings up number 2, lymphatic movement, right? We've talked about this a lot of times on different episodes or podcasts for AzureWell. The lymph does not have a pump like the cardiovascular system. So what pumps the lymph is your muscular movement. As you're moving and the muscles are contracting, relaxing, that is pumping the lymphatic system. At least according to science right now, that's what we believe. I think there's probably some other stuff there, like water intake and breathing, and probably a lot to do with how the energy circulation in the body moves helps the lymphatic system move. So having proper polarity and proper positive and negative electrons in the body, especially the negative ones, are really important. So grounding. But this means that we actually have to do things to encourage the lymph to move. If we're sitting around all the time and we're docile, then the lymph system's not going to move. And that's very important for your immune system. The lymph system is a major portion of the immune system. And it's also the major portion of the body that goes around the body and gathers up toxins and then flushes them into the areas to be eliminated or detox, like the liver and the kidneys and things like that. So there's a lot of things you can do for your lymph. There's manual lymphatic drainage massage, there's dry brushing, there's rebounding on a trampoline. That's not jumping on a trampoline, it's rebounding. Very light bouncing movement. We do something here called Flowpresso, which is an interesting device. It's a device you get into. It looks like a big bodysuit. And you get in the bodysuit and you strap it all up and you turn it on, and it uses air compression to basically give you a massage and move the lymph. So if you don't have someone who can do it with touch, That's the next best thing. Drinking more water. There are herbal drainage formulas, usually referred to as drainage formulas, for moving lymph. Energy circulation in Alphonso body will also help. Sleep. Can't overestimate that one. There we go. Sleep is a priority because while you're sleeping, your body's repairing. So if you want the body to heal faster, we have to be allowing the body to have time to rest and get into that healing process. So 7 to 8 hours sleep every night. One way to really do this is to get more disciplined about your procedures or whatever you do before bed. That's what gets you in the state. These days, we all have the phones or iPads or even computers, and oftentimes we're on them too late. We're getting all that blue light exposure. And then we jump into bed and we're like, why can't I fall asleep? Well, you probably haven't given your body enough time for the circadian rhythms to kick in because all that blue light exposure, your body was just still pumping out that serotonin instead of the melatonin. So you have to like kind of put all that stuff to aside, maybe a good half hour before bed. Stop looking at the devices, stop using the devices, allow your body to shift and get into that state where you can sleep. I need a drink of water for a second.
Go ahead. I'm thinking to myself how one of the best shifts I've made in my life is making a rule of turning off all the overhead lights after the sun goes down and relying on floor or candle light just to like light the home. It dramatic, like you don't want to stay up past 10 o'clock because it's been dark for 2
That's
hours,
right. That's right.
You're ready to go to bed at that point.
Which is, like we say, self-evident with nature. What did our
Mhm.
ancestors do?
Went to bed.
Before electricity, when the sun went down, you went to bed.
And it's wild to think that, what was it, 100 years ago, basically, we were honoring the rhythms more so of nature. I
Yeah.
mean, and, I guess it more 1800s, but still, I mean, that's only a couple generations. And we think we can, like, we're going to hack what our, natural system wants to do, you know? It's fascinating
More
to me.
machines and more technology and further away from nature.
Yeah, exactly. Oh.
Well, next is, we kind of covered this, healthy diet, nutrition. So you have to have your healthy fats, probiotics, citrus, turmeric, ginger, garlic. All these things are really powerful for the immune system. And of course, your 90 essential nutrients. And of course, the diet also means not eating the things that are triggering your body to have an inflammatory response or things that your body can't digest. And I think here in a minute, I think that maybe the next slide, we're going to talk more about different herbals and supplements that are really good for the immune system. And then we're going to look at what AzureWell has that can give you some of those things. Mm-hmm. Stress management is a big one. Engaging in stress reductive activities like meditation, Bible, reading, deep breathing. Oh, I said it right there. Reading scripture, prayer, those type of things. And there's others. Some people, exercising is a great stress reduction. Some people it's not. So, it's what works for you. Some people's stress management could be doing some like mental exercises, puzzles, and those kind of mental games where you can kind of be in a relaxed state, but yet you're keeping your mind active.
Mm-hmm.
But really dealing with the stress management, learning how to make your relationships better, and learning how to work through trauma and stuff like that is really important because it's pretty obvious that you can't please everybody. So you have to take care of yourself. And you can't base your life on what other people think and want you to do. And sometimes that is a difficult thing for some people. Some people are, there's different personalities, and some people can say no, and put their foot down very easily, and other people just kind of go along and do what everyone else wants them to do, and that doesn't help you either. So you have to learn how to put your boundaries just right. All that goes on with stress management. How are you going to interact with people? How are you going to interact with relationships? What relationships are healthy? Which ones are not? All of that goes into stress management. And then sunlight. Yeah, well, it makes melatonin during the day, but then when the sun goes down, it releases it. It helps activate your vitamin A, retinol. It helps make vitamin D, which probably should be called steroid hormone D, and improves sleep in the immune system. And we don't even know all the other, I mean, there's thousands of neurochemicals in the body. A lot of the master hormones are made with sunlight, because of sunlight. And we really don't know how many other functions of the body yet are actually activated and sustained by sunlight. I happen to think that there's a lot of our essential minerals need activated by sunlight. I don't know if we have any real scientific solid proof for that yet, but I have a feeling it's a true thing. I have a feeling the sun does a whole lot more biologically in the body than what we could possibly imagine yet. And we're just kind of scratching the surface of understanding that. I mean, look, we now know that there's 19, I think there's 19 different forms of vitamin D now that have been identified. And you're rarely ever hearing anyone talk about more than 2 forms. It's like, well, what do all those other ones do? And how do they do it? And how are they related? So another one of the reasons why I am not a big proponent of giving people D supplements, because most of them are synthetic, and we really have no idea how that whole pathway works. We think we know, but the final product of D is a water-soluble form after methylation, and no one talks about that. And it's like, well, how can you be taking a fat-soluble form that, does it get turned into the water-soluble form, or is it only when your body makes it itself, when you're in the sunlight? So there's a whole mechanics there that we have no idea really how important it is just to be in the sun and let the sun and the body do its thing.
I think it's so true. I mean, when you step outside, there's a 1 square meter. I think it's like 1 billion trillion photons are hitting you at that time, and I think of just how that propagates all these different process, like it's structuring your body, like that photonic signal is literally creating something. And I'm a photographer, and my free time, and recently I was just taken aback because I was zoomed in on my steering wheel for some reason, and I saw the sun rising and the change of the line of the photons along the steering wheel. And I just had this epiphany of how just witnessing that very macro view it was almost rhythmic in terms of the core, like it felt like it was coordinating something beyond what I could conceptualize in that one moment. But to your point, there's so much more, that like the sun is what literally tethers us to this walking, what is in a day. And I just think it's so critical for all those different pathways. It illuminates our path forward. So
Yes,
it's true.
and when we think about the idea that the body is mostly water,
Mm.
and when you look at fourth phase water, like Jared Pollock's work called the fourth phase of water, some people call it structured water or easy water, they found a significant influence of light upon structured water and how it was able to help it move and function and generate energy. So, we don't even think about those kind of things. Like, wow, is the water structuring the water, or the light, the sun? And what does that mean for us and for our bodies? Yeah.
So beautiful.
All right. So now we get to the 90, well, not just the 90, but nutrition overview. We've talked about the essential 90 multiple times, but how about some herbs for the immune system? And I don't know if I have a favorite. People always ask me, what's your favorite? I'm like, I don't know. I try not to have favorites because and I think this is true for almost all the naturopathic vitalists out there. We don't treat disease, we treat the person. And every person is so unique. There's no such thing as one herb that's going to work for everybody, right? Your body might like echinacea. Your body might like red clover. Your body might like ginger. Your body might like golden seal. It might like the garlic. It might like the olive. We know there are certain principles to all these herbs, and we know they're going to have a certain action in the body. But then it really does still come down to the person. So we're pretty unique with what we do at our health ministry clinic, and we're testing every single person with special scanning to see what their body actually wants. So I like all these things, and some of them I like for more functions than others. I really love using red clover a lot when a person needs more of a drainage formula, but at the same time needs some immune support. You can't really go wrong with olive leaf. You can't really go wrong with garlic, and you really can't go wrong with any of these. So it really depends on what does the person need and what do they need it for. But these are your common herbals. And then we have drainage, herbal drainage, very important. One of the most basic and simple things people can do to improve their health is to improve the drainage and elimination of the body, or what we call the emunctories. Because if you can do that, then your body will slowly detox and eliminate from the body. And usually the number one cause of disease is toxicity. It's not the only one. It's not always number one, but most of the time, and everyone has it today, everyone has toxicity. So instead of just jumping on a huge detox plan, one way to do it in a more natural way is just get good herbal drainage and get the elimination channels working. And look at all these herbs listed here. Oh, echinacea is on the list again, but cat's claw, red clover's on there again, hydrangea, burdock root, phenomenal. There's a lot of stuff there for the liver, the burdock and the dandelion. Hydrangea also helps the liver. The red clover helps the liver and the blood. All these different herbals for cleaning out the different systems. And then you have cleavers and calendula, and you have all these other ones really have a lot to do with helping the lymph and the kidneys. So if you don't know, the elimination systems or the emunctories, as classified today, there's probably 6, sometimes people say 7 today. So obviously your bowels have to be moving, and then the liver is a major detoxer. You have your kidneys, you have the lymph, you have your lungs, and you have your skin. Those are the top 6 that most people consider today. It hasn't always been like that. As time progressed, we learn more and more. But I think they classically used to identify 4 of them, and now we're up to 6. And we're, every once in a while, we're wondering about other systems of the body that might have something to do with eliminating toxins from the body. But getting those things moving and draining is very important. Then there's just good old foods. A lot of your citrus foods. Why? Well, they're going to have the whole food C complex in them. And obviously, vitamin C is very important for the immune system. It's much more powerful if you have the whole C structure and not just ascorbic acid, which is the outside ring. So in all the AzureWell products, you're going to get the whole food C structure that has all the other processes. Different. I'm losing the word I want to use, but all those constituents, they all work together, and they all have to be there. And that's the problem with isolating things. When you isolate, you lose a lot of what was there. And the other thing with isolating nutrition, oftentimes things that get isolated become synthesized and become synthetic. And then you find yourself in a situation where you usually have to do much higher doses because you don't have all the other properties that would naturally be found in the food that you would get from that whole C complex. So now you have to make up for what's missing by giving more. And that confuses people. A lot of people want to look at our labels and say, well, why does your whole food C only have like 500 milligrams? Where's the 2,000? And it's like, well, you don't need the 2,000 when you're doing the whole food. You actually can use a whole lot less. And sometimes it's as little as 4 times, but it can be anywhere between 4 times to 10 times more powerful to use a whole food substance than isolated nutrition.
It's so true. It's that matrix effect, right? It's the
Yeah.
flavonoids and all these polyphenols and
Yes, that's
all
the
of
words
those
I was
are,
looking for.
yeah, they have those signaling cascades, right? And they're all little, they're like little photons in the body themselves, and they do different actions and sequestering and oxidation, free radicals, and you name it, right? In terms of just like supporting everything around that. So then vitamin C actually can do what it's supposed to do
That's
as
right.
vitamin C rather than just getting reduced on the front end because it doesn't have any protection around it. So yeah, it's
And
cool.
what's worse is, besides the fact that you need more when you're doing a synthetic version, uh, the body now has to balance that substance
Yeah.
that you just put in the body that's not balanced because it didn't come from nature. So now the body's going to pull from other resources in the body to balance that substance. And now you're going to become more deficient in other things.
Hmm.
So it's just better to go with how nature designed it and stick with that.
Great.
Berries. Berries also are usually loaded with vitamins, minerals, antioxidants. That's a big thing with the berries is the antioxidants. And obviously, the higher your antioxidants, the more you can deal with oxidative stress and free radicals. Leafy greens. Leafy greens are usually filled with a lot of your really important vitamins, the B vitamins and the C vitamins and all that stuff, and a lot of minerals in the greens. Fatty fish. That's where you're going to get your omega oils, EPA and DHA and omega 3, sometimes 6 and 9 as well, usually in lower doses. But you need those essential fatty acids. And probably very often misoverlooked the power of cod liver oil and retinol when you're sick. A lot of people don't think about the fatty acids when you're not feeling well, but they're really powerful. They're really important. And the retinol that would come from your fish, like cod liver oil, is one of the few forms of vitamin A that can coat and protect the gut from bad bacteria. So something we don't really think about. And when you understand the gut brain connection and how much of the immune system is in the gut, then you realize that protecting the gut is really important. The fermented foods, and it's the same thing. The fermented foods are so powerful for the gut and the good bacteria, right? We do have, and see, that's another thing to think about in this whole discussion. All bacteria aren't bad,
Hmm.
right? So a lot of the bugs in your body aren't bad. So they're not some bad thing to kill and eliminate all the time. Sometimes they need to be encouraged in the right amounts. So this is where a lot of the fermented foods come in. They're really good for promoting that healthy microbiome so that your body's immune system is functioning better because it all begins in the gut. And then you have things like the elderberry and yogurt. Yogurt more is because of the probiotics. Elderberry is just because it's one of those really, really powerful herbs. Um, and so it can be a food and it can also be an herbal. So very powerful for the immune system and white cells and all those kind of things. Then we kind of have these topics that are like, well, how do you classify it? Food, spice, herb? Can it be all of them? Yes. And that's the nice thing is when you're making some food and you want to spice it up. Hey, a lot of times you can grab these things and put it on your food and you're getting little micro doses. Ginger, garlic, turmeric, bell peppers, mushrooms, all these types of foods or spices that can also be used in an herbal form. And then you have other things like the fulvic humic minerals, the whole food C, glutathione, the master antioxidant, probiotics, NAC, which you need to help make glutathione, and then copper, my favorite mineral that I think is way overlooked in the medical field today. I think on purpose. They have brainwashed us to think that copper is bad. Um, I don't think there's any minerals that really are bad. I think it's the type of mineral, right? We want organically bound minerals like we find in plants and animals. You don't want inorganic minerals like rocks. We're not meant to eat rocks. So if you get the right proper types of minerals, they don't become metabolic toxins. Metabolic toxins are because the body can't metabolize it right. And then that's when they build up and they become a problem. So that's why we want to do whole food nutrition, because you're getting the minerals in the right form and you're getting the vitamins in the right form, not in some either inorganic rock form or some synthetic form like the vitamins. All right. So now, what can you do with the AzureWell line? Okay, well, all kinds of things. If you want to just focus on the core 90 essential nutrients, well, you can see there in the right side of the slide, you have the core copper, the whole food C, and the fulvic humeric mineral blend. That's a good way to get your minerals and some of your other whole food nutrition. And of course, there's the whole food multi, the cod liver oil,
Mm-hmm.
and then the IP6. So if you really wanted to get your 90 essential, you could just do the whole food multi, the fulvic, the cod liver oil, and IP6. And that would give you pretty much everything you need. But maybe you want to be more specific. There's the garlic immune. This is a phenomenal formula. Really great for immune system.
I
A
love
lot of
what the
people don't realize it's really great also for getting parasites. All right. Go ahead. You were going to say something.
I was just gonna say, I think I love garlic, but I also know eating like raw garlic can be a lot, and a lot of times when you're looking to have the allicin, which is the active
Yeah.
constituent of garlic, you need to be eating the raw garlic, right? But also not just eating it just from the clove. You need to cut it, dice it, allow it to sit out, because then the enzymes actually work on the precursor to form allicin. But within each serving of our garlic immune, you're getting about one full clove of that active allicin, which, that's a great way to maybe not have to consume. Like if you're looking to do like a garlic reset on your immune system, consuming a clove of garlic a day, your taste buds might be a little, a little burned after that. So this is a great option in a capsule form to, get that into the body. So
Yes, and
definitely.
they're not very large capsules. So that makes it nice for the kids too.
Yeah,
Because
exactly.
yeah, you're going to be hard pressed to get your kids to eat some garlic.
A little spicy there.
Another favorite of mine is the Recover Immune Vitality Complex. What can you say about this one? It's just amazing. It has the
Yeah,
beta glucans in there. You have
yeah.
your adaptogens in there. It's just such a powerhouse right there. I
I
love it.
think that one is, truthfully, Dr. Monzo, is one I recommend most people have in their cabinet around whenever they feel like, their body's under more stress or they're about to go
Mhm.
through more stress, in their life. Those nucleotides can be kind of the rate limiting factor to the mobilization of the immune system. I think about, I'm big into athletics, and a really tough workout can kind of knock down the reserves of nucleotides because the body's focusing on building new muscle cells and repairing. But then you come in and maybe you are under more stress, and then that gives space for that little pathogen that we talked about, right? Or the virus, right? To come in and maybe find its way home. Well, if we have more nucleotides, that might
Mhm.
create more of a reserve to kind of keep that away, right? And so with the recovery immune complex, it's one of those things where, you feel like you're coming down with something, or you feel like you're just overburdened, getting the body more of that, more of those nucleotides with the BGF immune, that's a beta glucan complex. We're fueling the fires, so to speak, of the immune system, which I just think is just a beautiful way of supporting the resiliency of the body. You could, of course, eat a bunch of mushrooms and other foods with that, but sometimes it's just easier to supplement in that sense.
That's right. Well, the next one is olive leaf, and that's an interesting one because it's not just olive leaf. This has other stuff in it. It's been amplified with mushrooms, so you're getting some
Mhm.
mushrooms and the olive leaf. It's great for the immune system, cardiovascular health. It also helps with clearing environmental, so toxins keep everything nice and clean in the body. Uh, I think olive leaf is overlooked a lot of times. I don't think many people realize how powerful it is. I like to use the olive leaf a lot of times, not for everybody, but in a lot of the Lyme's cases, olive leaf is one of the big herbals I'm looking at. And sometimes it's cat's claw, sometimes it's olive leaf, sometimes it's teasel root. I mean, you just never know. There's a whole list of different ones, but that's a big one I often go to that tests really well for people when they're coming in with something really critical like the Lyme disease, is
Mm.
the olive leaf. So really powerful. Next, okay, well these supplements have more to do with, at least the first two, have more to do with the gut
Mm.
and gut mobility, healing the gut up. Now, there are two different formulas, obviously. The Cadava is more of an herb for intestinal cleansing. It really helps get that peristalsis and the gut moving. Whereas the Parapunch, as the name kind of sounds, that one's more for the parasites. So that one does still help the biofilm. But look what's in there. You have organic clove blood, you have the reishi mushroom, the fruiting bodies, the olive leaf, hyssop, and wild bear garlic. I mean, that's a pretty powerhouse. So that one's more for getting rid of the invaders, and the other one is more for the actual gut itself. Now, oftentimes, using these two together is where you kind of get the 1-2 punch. So this is more of when you need to address something in the gut. So
Yeah, beautiful formulas that I always think of the Kuruha as how it's very toning to the gut, right? I mean, it helps to
Mhm.
kind of it does kind of help to stimulate a little bit, but it also helps to kind of tone up that reserve, and especially when you think about how disordered bowel function, right, can kind of seep on that vital capacity, right? I mean, there's all sorts of reasons why that's happening. When
Mhm.
somebody has like loose stool, this might help to kind of help correct a lot of facets around that, right? Which is a wonderful thing.
Yeah, I find that most people can tolerate this, right?
Mm.
Because this is not the type of formula that's really gripping, that's
Mm.
going to
Mhm.
make you run to the bathroom every 5 minutes or something. And
No,
it's like
no.
there are certain herbs out there you just mentioned, like Kasir. Yeah, you mention it and people go, "Oh no, 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 no! I did that once before," and then you're like, "No, this is not going to be a gripping formula that makes you run to the bathroom every couple of seconds."
That's true. Yeah.
So that's nice to have something that most people can handle. Because sometimes when the gut's really inflamed, those more powerful herbals people can't handle. And you have to do something a little bit more subtle. And I find that a lot of people can handle this even when they're in a really bad situation. So that is a nice thing, that toning effect.
Mhm.
NAC, antioxidant. You have sinus support and lung support. So these are three different things, kind of moving in a different direction now. Uh, NAC is the pre for glutathione. So you need NAC to be able to make glutathione in the body. So that's one great purpose. It has really powerful antioxidants. It's going to help you detox a little, but as a mucolytic agent. So this is a herbal that's going to help with the mucous membranes. So if you're having mucus problems in the body, here you go. That's also true for the sinus support and the lung support. So all these kind of have some support for the mucus, which is why I kind of put them together. But they're not limited to that. So NAC is going to greatly support the respiratory system and the liver and the immune system. And then the mucous membranes. It's going to help you to get a little detoxing going on and helping your body to make the glutathione. So that's a powerhouse. Sinus support is a little bit different. I really love this formula. Uh, if I'm starting to get any type of uh, allergies from the environment, like hay fever or anything like that, I don't really typically get that, but sometimes I do. I had that here recently with the fires from
Mm.
Canada coming right over here into Ohio. Our skies were pretty much black, and it smelled like burning metal. It was nasty,
Mm.
and people were coming in that day saying, just my eyes and throat burn from breathing
Mhm.
whatever that is. And it's like, well, this was a great formula for something like this. Yeah, it does have NAC in it. It has the bromelain, which is a enzyme, It has the reishi mushroom, the quercetin, and then a bunch of other stuff in there. But this really helps the sinus and the mucous membranes. And with some of these herbals in here, it has a special affinity to the liver and liver support. And a lot of people don't realize it, and digestion. But people don't realize a lot of times that the liver and your intestines can be directly related to sinus and sinus issues and congestion. So a lot of times by helping clear the liver and the gut, you actually clear the sinus. So I really like this formula. Really great for people if you're having any type of really allergy. I think it's going to help. And then we have the lung support, which kind of is self-explanatory. It supports the immune system, the lungs, respiratory, really powerful antioxidants in there, inflammation support. So anything you want to add in there, Will, to close this up?
Yeah, I mean, I love how you kind of beautifully organize all these in kind of their categories, right? And I think the one thing I always like to hit on with NAC is it really is a wonderful bridge to kind of the full kind of how the body's handling free radical pathologies, but also just overall oxidative. It's not merely there to fight oxidation, it helps to regulate oxidative processes intelligently, right? So when we think of like sinus support and an NAC antioxidant, I'm always thinking about kind of the redox equations of the body. And, so much in regards to that conversation of like the vital force and the reserve of the body goes into how the body is intelligently organizing itself around kind of that redox equation that it has to go through in every day. And a lot of those different components, the bromelain, the quercetin, NAC, they all work to kind of help to support kind of almost mitochondrial intelligence in regulating all those different areas, which then if we're thinking about structuring the immune resilience in the body, well, I'm kind of looking in that direction, long term, right? So just great formulas that can really be brought in outside of their named intention, I think, to really support kind of that adaptive resilience in the body. So, yeah, amazing stuff.
Yes. Well, I think that's it. So
Amazing.
that's our immune to myths.
Dr. Monzo, thank you so much for leading today's conversation and really helping us to look at immune health in kind of a different direction, really kind of going into more around the question around how the body can maintain its capacity to respond rather than us really kind of adopting a fear response around what the immune system is. And, when we're faced with immune burden, right, how we can maybe really build a resiliency around that. And so I just want to say thank you for your stewardship. Thank you for your perspective and your expertise in this area. And I'm so excited for many, many more conversations on this forum with our AzureWell audience. So thank you so much for today's information.
Well, thank you. Thanks for having me. And hope everyone learned something. Now you have to put it to practice.
Amen. Well, to all those that are interested in learning more, you can always reach out to us at info@azurelivingwell.com. We will, of course, provide Dr. Monzo's contact information. So if you're interested in getting involved with him. But Dr. Monzo, just before we close out, what's the best way to reach you if our audience is interested in getting more involved in everything that you're doing?
The easiest way would probably be drmonzo.com. So drmonzo.com. And that takes you to a lot of information about me. But there's links on there that says something about the health clinic. So you can click on health clinic, and that will take you to the clinic site. And then that has also the books and education and all that kind of stuff. So you can find everything just from that one website. It's the easiest one to get to because the other one is a little bit more tricky. It has a hyphen and everything, and it's hard to. So Dr. Monzo.
Well, thank you, Dr. Monzo, again, and to all that listened in. Thank you all for being stewards of health in your own mission. And we look forward to sharing more insights on our next AzureWell podcast. So thank you all for attending. And Dr. Monzo, we'll see you next time.
All right, see you, everyone.